Welcome back. This is The Firm. The accounting standards version, the RBI version, the Competition Act version, the company law version, and now the Commerce Ministry version, all offering different definitions of what constitutes a group or a group company. The latest one by the Commerce Ministry has come after a 3-year-long wait. In some ways, it's good news for the defense sector, but not so good news maybe for the cash and carry business. Paiswani Upadhyay does some group thinking.
In 1997, India allowed foreign direct investment in the cash and carry and wholesale trading business. Since then, Metro, Walmart, Tesco and other foreign big box giants have set up store in India, some with Indian partners. And some of those Indian partners went on to launch retail stores of their own, hoping to benefit from the in-house cash and carry supplier. But those hopes were dashed by a new condition in the April 2010 FDI policy. The Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, or DIPP, laid down that cash and carry companies cannot supply more than 25% of their turnover to group companies.
There was a fear that the whole trade or cash and carry operators might eventually service multi-brand retail outlets. In the case of Bharti Walmart, everybody knows that there were 20-odd outlets of Bharti Retail. So the question was whether there should be a limit up to which the wholesale trader should service the multi-brand retailing, or otherwise it would become simply a back-to-back arrangement between the parent and the subsidiary.
Oddly though, what constituted a group company was not defined.
Under the wholesale cash and carry FDI rules, where 100% FDI was allowed under the automatic route, some conditionalities were put. And one important conditionality was, and this was actually not there originally, but it came in later because people said that this is misuse of the provision, that they were selling it to group entities. And therefore they said that not more than 25% of the top line can be sold to a group entity. The definition of group entity was left undefined, and therefore one had to choose or decide whether the entities that they were being sold to were groups or not, whether they were associate concern, whether it was controlling interest, whether it was 50% or not.
That confusion lasted 3 years. Till earlier this week, the DIPP defined group company to include 2 or more enterprises which, directly or indirectly, are in a position to exercise 26% or more of voting rights in other enterprise or appoint more than 50% of members of board of directors.
What that effectively means is, supposing there is a company A that holds 26% in one company and let's say 50% in another. So there are companies A, company B, company C, company A holding 26% in B and 50% in C. Then B and C will also, in my mind, from a substance perspective, be deemed to be group companies, even though strictly they may not fall within this definition. B and C being sister subsidiaries of the parent company A.
While group company now stands clarified for the wholesale cash and carry business, the implications for multi-brand retail are not yet clear. Last year, the government allowed 51% foreign direct investment in multi-brand retail, and this week issued several clarifications on the policy. As yet, besides the 25% limit on cash and carry sales to group companies, no additional supply restrictions have been imposed between cash and carry and multi-brand retail businesses in the same group. But the latest press note carries an ominous line.
A, the government has clarified that multi-brand retail trading and wholesale cash and carry cannot be carried out by the same entity. So that is proposition 1. So you will have to go, either you will have to have 2 entities, or you will have to go for multi-brand retail, or you will have to choose to go for wholesale cash and carry. That is point 1. Now this restriction of sourcing between group companies applies in the context of wholesale cash and carry trading. In the context of multi-brand retail trading, there's a whole different code. There's a certain investment norm, there's states which allow it, and so on and so forth. So there are a whole bunch of other conditions. I don't think the government has yet clarified as to how sourcing norms in the context of multi-brand retail trading in the context of group companies will work.
Besides the retail sector, the definition of group company is also relevant for the defense and information and broadcasting sectors. For both sectors, the DIPP has laid down that the equity held by the largest Indian shareholder would have to be at least 51% of the total equity. This largest Indian shareholder could be an individual, a company, or a group of companies controlled by an individual or having common management and ownership. But what constituted a group was moot.
In the past, there have been a number of definitions. There has been talk about saying that any company which is an associate company, i.e. a company with more than 20% shareholding, will also be deemed to be a group company. The ultra-conservatives have argued that the shareholding must be 51% in the absence of a definition, and only subsidiaries should be group. Although I think the majority view was more inclined towards the 20% kind of condition. So what the government has gone and done is that they prescribed a threshold limit of 26%, which is also the limit which gives you special rights under the Companies Act and so on. And therefore, to my mind, it's a reasonable definition.
In a sense, while it tightens up the wholesale cash and carry requirements, because even with 26% you'll be considered a group. For the defense sector, it was important for the resident Indian to show that he's controlling more than 51%, or for the foreigner to show that resident Indian citizens are controlling more than 51% for him to be able to get his 26 or 49% stake. Therefore, if it is interpreted in that manner, that 26% will tantamount to management and control, then yes, in some sense it has liberalized it. Because so far we would typically be saying that management and control will come with maybe more than 50%.
The 26% threshold in DIPP's definition is common with how competition law defines group, but the competition definition includes control as well. The threshold in company law is at least 33% voting power. RBI's threshold is in some cases lower, as low as 20%, and yet more expansive. For instance, the Core Investment Company Guidelines define companies in the group as an arrangement involving two or more entities related as subsidiary parent, joint venture, associate, promoter-promotee for listed companies or related party, and investment in equity shares of 20% and above. Accounting standards use 50% and more voting power as one measure to define group. Compared to RBI's 20%, competition laws 26%, company laws 33%, and accounting standards 50%, FDI policies 26% group definition threshold seems acceptable to most experts I spoke to. But now that the definition is out of the way, the focus has shifted to various restrictions imposed on group companies. While in sectors like media and defense, it may be good news, in sectors like retail, we have yet to hear the final word from policymakers. In Mumbai, Paisini Upadhyay.
Thank you, DIPP. You keep us in business. Well, actually, I should thank the tax department as well for its regular supply of controversy. Though this week, there was a minor setback to Revenue's position in the Shell case. So it seems, the same case in which a supposed undervalued investment in the share capital of the Indian subsidiary has been deemed a loan to the foreign parent. Well, this week, in a separate case, but with similar sounding facts, the Hyderabad bench of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, or the ITAT, held that the amount invested by the Indian company in the share capital of its foreign subsidiaries is not an international transaction. It also observed that since there is no income, the tax department cannot apply transfer pricing provisions. Well, here's Khaitan's Daksha Bakshi on the precedent value of this ITAT ruling and what it could mean for the Shell case.
I think this is a very, very welcome ruling. And I think it will be very helpful in case of the other cases which are pending also. Of course, each case is based on its own facts, and therefore we can't carte blanche say that this will have a precedential value in respect of Shell and all the other cases which are pending and to whom the department has given notices. But I certainly think that this is a good trend, that at least the major fact which has been which is coming out of this case is that in order that transfer pricing is attractive, there must be income. unless there is income, just because a transaction falls within the definition of international transaction automatically, it does not mean that attracts transfer pricing. The transfer pricing regulations, in fact, the first section starts with the words any income arising. So therefore, there must be income, and income must be in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act, not something which you do by way of a secondary interpretation of the transaction.
All right, on that note, it's time to say goodbye, but I do hope you're watching our new series, Rules of the Startup Game. It launched on the 1st of June. This weekend, we're playing the second show out. All feedback on all shows is always welcome, so do write in. We'll see you next week.